All right, guys. Good afternoon. A little bit different setup here. I'm actually just in my living room, and so you see the fan going. You see my guitar over there. Actually, it's one of my kids' guitars. So I wanted to hop on. It's a little. This is not the long form video about the effects of bed rest like I was going to hoping to cover next. I just wanted to hop on and talk about some things that we've been experiencing at the hospital, and more or less, not so much the. I'll give you some details as to what what those things are, but I think this is a case study in how not to be a leader. Okay, and look, I'm not going to sit on my ivory tower here and armchair quarterback and pretend that running a hospital is the simplest or easiest thing to do. It isn't. Okay, but maybe I think I'll make sense when I articulate what my concerns are. Okay, so if you've watched any of my videos, especially some of my earlier videos, I mentioned that I passed on a promotion to become the director of rehab at our facility. Okay, the reasons for that are numerous. Check out those two videos if you want a more detailed look at that. But suffice it to say, at this point, that was that was back in January, so we're in August now. That decision has been validated on multiple different fronts. Okay, so if you my last longer form video, I mentioned the fact that we need healthcare workers, and I talked about why that is and some of the reasons that we're maybe experiencing healthcare worker shortages and so on. And I still agree with all of that. The other side of this, though, is in a hospital with as many moving parts as a hospital has, it sort of functions like a small city, if I'm honest. And sometimes there are things that happen, there are decisions that have to be made that aren't going to be popular. And anyone who's an adult or is a parent or has been a part of any sort of professional effort, whether it be jobs or other career tracks, anything like that, I think we all know that sometimes you just have to make tough decisions and deal with the consequences. Okay, where I think, at least in my experience, what I think makes good leaders is how do we navigate through those difficult seasons when the experiences of the people that you're leading is going to be less than ideal. What signals do you send? How do you lead them through that? How do you communicate through that? Because sometimes things just are difficult. They're just hard to deal with. And I think most adults understand that. What we've experienced is that very thing. There have been some developments at our facility that have made it necessary to make some difficult decisions. Okay, whether we're going to cap floors or we're going to consolidate floors. How are we going to close our transfer center? Are we going to stop taking as many transfers in from outside facilities? All those things have significant downstream effects to the rest of the hospital staff. And so the decision was made at some point in the last 8 weeks, 2 months or so, to close the transfer center. The decision was made to consolidate floors, to cap the patient census. In other words, how many patients is the hospital going to hold at any given time? The decision was made to cap that at some point. Now, the unfortunate reality of the situation, specifically at our facility, was that no one was given the information in a concise fashion. As in, hey, hospital team, all of my getting the managers all together, the directors of all the departments, and saying, hey, we're in a tight spot. We have to make some tough decisions. Here's what the decisions are going to be. Here's what the effects that we anticipate will be because of those decisions. And please deliver this message to your teams respectively, and let them know that this is the plan, this is the vision, this is how we're going to get through it, and just prepare accordingly in the interim while we have to kind of tighten our belts a little bit. Okay. That never happened. In fact, we found the way that the rehab department found out is by just being on the floors of the hospital and talking with our other hospital coworkers and learning about some of these things kind of secondhand. The director of rehab, the lady who applied for the job after I passed the promotion, and she has been the acting director since about February. She has never been told what was happening, what the plans were to close certain units or anything like that. All that came as second and third hand information to her from her employees or other hospital staff members. This has been going on for 2 months, and she has yet to sit down with any of the administrative staff at the hospital and have one of them explain to her, hey, this is the message that we need you to deliver to your team. This is what's happening. This is why it's happening. And things are going to be a little difficult until we get a handle on the situation. So that's not happened yet. Still hasn't happened at this point. There's been all manner of craziness happen. The most significant or the most obvious problem with this is if you've spent any time around people or supervising people or leading people to any degree, even in your own families, really, not even being a leader, but if you just have been around groups of people and a rumor starts, and if it doesn't get cleared up pretty quickly, it ends up growing into this thing that it never was to begin with. So now what's happened is you have other hospital staff members creating their own narrative about what's happened or what's happening. And it's making people very anxious. It's making people very short with one another. Everybody's kind of nerves are a little bit on edge about everything, because some people are wondering, are we going to have a job? Is the hospital going to stay open? And all of these things, and all indications are that the hospital is going to stay open. It's just that people are having to coach themselves back from a ledge because there is no one giving any consistent signaling about the vision for how to get through this difficult season that the hospital happens to be in. And so the more I've thought about it, yes, going through a difficult season in a situation like this is hard enough. It compounds the difficulty when you have a leadership team that is responsible for leading their staff through a situation like this. It makes it more difficult when we are not getting clear information from our leadership. Okay, and that sounds like I could have had a V8, right? But apparently the folks that are on the administrative staff at our facility, they fail to see why that would be useful. At least the evidence for the last 2 months, 2.5 months, has indicated that, because there has been no messaging about it. It got so bad that there were physicians that were being caught off guard by the same type of information. So they have patients coming to this hospital that they see in the community, and their patients are coming to this facility and they're hearing from their patients that, hey, I heard some of the hospital staff say that this floor is going to close next week. And of course, that concerns the physician. And so a couple of the physicians made a couple phone calls, gathered an audience together with the administrative staff, made their concerns known, and now the transfer center has been opened back up. They're not closing certain floors, and things have kind of swung back the other direction. Well, now everybody has whiplash, because now it's like, well, what? If it was as simple as somebody making a phone call, was it ever really necessary in the first place? And so, just a pretty good case study in how not to be a leader. I can't speak for everyone at the hospital. I can speak for myself, though. What would have been nice to have happened is for the administrative staff to sit down with the managers and directors of the different departments at the hospital and say, hey guys, we are in a tight spot. We have to make some difficult decisions. Here's what those decisions are. Here's what we expect the consequences to be. We need you to work together with your teams to figure out how we're going to navigate this difficult season so that we can come through on the other side with as little collateral damage as possible. And then the managers or directors would have then gone back to their teams and spent 20, 30 minutes, whatever it happens to be, talking with their staff and figuring out, okay, like for instance, in the rehab department, what we had to do on the fly of our own just kind of critical thinking skills about, hey, we can't continue to operate like this. We don't know what's happening, but we can see that there's something happening. We have to determine what our flex off schedule is going to be. How's that going to be carried out, and so on and so forth. Figuring out, are there other duties that some of our other staff can go do if they are flexed off on a given day. Having to do all that legwork just reflexively instead of proactively. And so a bit frustrating. As you can probably imagine, you can probably pick up from my demeanor. It hasn't been the most pleasant last few months at the facility in which I work. And the unfortunate thing is that it didn't have to be as volatile as it has been if there would have been clear and concise messaging. The message may have been this. I think the effects would have been the same. It would just have been that we would have been prepared and know that, hey, this is our plan to get through it. We didn't know if this is going to be indefinite. We still don't really know that. We just know that now temporarily, the problems that we were starting to notice will be somewhat solved by allowing more patients to come into the hospital. And so a little bit of a rant today, but more or less just a time to highlight how not to lead or manage a facility, at least in this capacity. It has nothing to do with what decision was made. It has everything to do with communicating the decision that was made. Okay, so not sure who needs to hear that. Maybe you can take that principle and apply it to something you're going through. But until next time, remember, you can't go wrong getting strong. This is Jeremy with Hospital PT.